Here we go.
You're tuning in to Will Love Listen. Now listen.
Hey, Jackie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
First off, it's a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for joining me today. I have to say, I've not been this excited for a Housewives book since Brandy Glanville's Drinking and Tweeting, and that was like a decade ago.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing to hear. Thank you.
And one of the reasons I'm super excited is because from a writer's standpoint, I have to commend you because I believe you're the only housewife who actually wrote their book without a ghostwriter and without a co-writer. So props to that.
I really think so. I know there was some kind of controversy over whether Carol Raswell did, but I don't know if that was during her time as a housewife. So, I'm very proud of that. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's a big deal because, and
Yeah.
I don't think she was a housewife when that book came out. So technically, I think you are the first.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. I wear that crown very proudly.
As you should. And more importantly, your story is really touching. And it hits home to me because one thing I do have to say, not that I want to make this about me at all, but just to explain why it hits home, both my mother and one of my best friends are recovered anorexics.
No, Will, I want you to make it about you. That's the whole reason I wrote it, so other people can find themselves in it.
And growing up as a kid, I vividly remember at one point my mother had to be hospitalized for it. And as I got older myself, there were certain traits which kind of trickled down to me. So I'm excited to get into this conversation with you because even reading the introduction, I got teary-eyed. And I'm a little bit of a cynic. I could be a little bit of an asshole at times, to be honest. So reading the book, for me to get teary-eyed over it is it really touched me. You could, the vulnerability comes across in this book, the honesty, and I love it.
I love hearing that. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I loved how you started off the book with a quote from George Orwell's 1984, which has been one of my favorite books since high school.
Okay.
And I like how if you want to keep a secret, you must also hide it from yourself. And that really personifies the book as a whole.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot.
It's true, because if you know, that's one of the problems with an eating disorder is it's so omnipresent in every single part of your life, those fears around food. And so there's no way to deny that you're sick. You always know in the back of your mind,
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot I want to discuss with you, but I want to take it back and talk about your childhood first, because childhood shapes everything. So I'd like you to go in detail. How was your life growing up? And at one point, did you realize this was an issue? And how much of a role, more importantly, did bullying and feeling isolated play in you developing anorexia?
Yeah. So until I was 13, I really don't remember having any kind of issues with food. I was a really happy kid. I was never thin. I was never overweight. I was happy. And then when I moved as a young teen, I moved to an area that was completely undeveloped, to a new high school where I was really shut out and not accepted. And I was in the same grade as my brother. It was the first time that we were going to school together. My brother's disabled, and we had a really hard time. And the isolation and loneliness that I felt really stuck with me and made me, during that time I gained a lot of weight, and I was obese during high school, and not morbidly obese, but I was, over 200 pounds, and I was really, my brother was bullied. I was more so teased and ignored and looked right through. I couldn't have felt less visible or significant, and I felt that loneliness, I associated that with being overweight, and in my mind it formed this connection of overweight equals miserable and lonely and isolated, and that stuck with me. And I think those were the feelings and the fears that kept me sick for so long.
I do have to say, I found it very admirable, you always coming to your brother's defense.
Yeah, of course. I mean, my brother is the greatest person you ever want to meet, and to watch someone you love be hurt is just, it's so painful. And I always tell my kids, just remember that when you hurt somebody, you not only hurt them, you hurt their mother and their father and their siblings. Everybody who loves them gets hurt. So it was really hard for me. All of it was so hard for me.
Now, there is a scene in season 9, your first season. There was an episode where you were watching a home video when you were younger and, of course, weighed more. And your father complimented you on your weight loss. You had mentioned you almost died, and he sort of, kind of joked about it. And I want to ask, because this all started in your teens and in your youth, growing up, do you feel that you downplayed your eating disorder because you felt your family and or friends would not have taken it seriously?
No, so I think that my father has, unfortunately, the kind of thoughts around eating disorders and food and weight that a lot of people have, which is, that it's not that serious of a thing, that eating disorders are just like someone's attempt to lose weight, and that, like, dieting stinks, and if you lose weight, that's great, and if you don't, like, try again. So my father never thought it was serious. I hid my eating disorder as much as I could from everyone because I was so ashamed of it, because there were so many really horrible, destructive habits around it, but also because I was very scared that if anyone noticed, they would force me to change, and I didn't want to change because, again, I had started losing weight, and I really enjoyed losing weight, and I associated being heavy with, being ignored. It was really, it's really hard when you feel ugly and then suddenly you feel beautiful and people are telling you that you're beautiful. It's hard to, go backwards, even if what you're doing is killing yourself.
I agree with that. And I think that's something that many people can relate to. Now, as you got older, was there something in particular that you feel looking back kind of fed the eating disorder more than the other? And what I mean by that, do you feel like you having felt sort of ignored as a child, or was it like societal pressures as you got older and started noticing how much thin and the perfect body was pushed on all these women magazines? Do you like...
Yeah, I think it was all of it. I mean, I think all the fears and the distorted thoughts started in high school, and that trauma just kind of stuck with me, and the feelings of loneliness and isolation stuck with me. And as I got older, I think that I still got a lot of comments. Things weren't as politically correct, and it wasn't as much fat acceptance today as, back then as there is today. And, I would get comments all the time that I would be beautiful if. And so I knew what I wasn't. And I think the positive reinforcement I got when I started to lose weight, even though it was through such unhealthy means, was it just reinforced everything. It just made me want to go harder, And then all of a sudden, this is why eating disorders are so dangerous. Well, one of the reasons is you just wake up one day and you're like, God, I've just spiraled so far into this, I don't even know how to begin digging myself out.
As time went on, did you always recognize it was a problem, or the more weight you lost, did that sort of justify it in your mind?
Yeah, I didn't even let my mind go to, I have a problem, until more recent years. But I knew I had a problem, but I denied that it was a problem that I needed to imminently handle. I thought that it was an unhealthy way of living, but a sustainable way. I kind of felt like
you could manage it.
Yeah, like I could like the things that were happening to my body weren't things that would kill me, and it was worth it to be thin. Like all the health issues that I had, I felt like were health issues that wouldn't kill me, so that I could keep going. And I didn't know some of the health issues that I had at the time, of course, but I really rationalized away any concerns that I had. I knew it wasn't healthy, and I knew that I wasn't enjoying my life the way I was supposed to, but I didn't let myself think hard enough about what that might be doing to me, because I didn't I wasn't ready to stop.
When did the extreme calorie counting, at what age did that come into play?
Well, my obsession with counting started with Weight Watchers. They taught me how to, and I don't know what Weight Watchers is like today, so I'm not, trying to destroy Weight Watchers, but back in the 90s, they used a method called Quick Start, and it really was like a starvation diet. It was maybe like 900 calories a day or 1,000. And it taught me how to look at food as, it got rid of food as something that, is used for like enjoyment or like, it got rid of all of that, and it made food into a game, mathematical equation of, how to maximize your intake for the least amount of calories or points or exchanges. And that's how I started thinking about food, and it never stopped. So my calculating started then, but the real extreme journaling of every calorie started at about 26 years old.
And from there, it only increased.
It was just so bad. Yeah, I mean, the journaling started out like hardcore, like every calorie was calculated, so it couldn't really get much worse. It actually got a little better because I had to throw away my food scales, so I couldn't exactly calculate, exactly how much I was eating, but I was still tracking everything. So, I mean, it started bad and it just stayed bad. And I'm talking, 18 years, every day for 18 years. I think there's a picture of it in the book of like a little of some of my food. There was about one a year of the journal and just like thousands of Post-it notes all over the place.
Wow. It sort of became, would you say that it sort of became your life and that you were almost competing with yourself?
My eating disorder controlled my life, and I compartmentalized parts of my life so that I could have, real joy. And I found real joy in my relationships with my children, with my husband, my friends. But my eating disorder controlled everything. So it was just always there. I mean, like, I could go on vacation and have a good time, but the eating disorder controlled my schedule. It controlled where we went on vacation, how long we would go for. I mean, it was always there. It was always there running the show, unfortunately.
Can you go in depth with how it affected you trying to conceive as well as your pregnancies?
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know how TMI you are on the show, but I lost my period when I was like 20 in my, I went off the pill. I had a period because I was still on birth control. And then when I went off birth control to get pregnant, I never got my period back. And I have never had my period since. Wow. So it's been, since I'm 30 years old, since I'm 30 years old. Right. So, I didn't ovulate and didn't have my period and I had like no estrogen in my body. And those were all due to my eating disorder, my anorexia. So I single-handedly destroyed my fertility with my eating disorder. And I went through many, many rounds of IVF. And on my first round, I got pregnant with twins. And on my fifth round, I got pregnant with twins. So that's how I had two sets of twins, which obviously I don't regret. They're the light of my life. But I did make things very difficult for myself. And luckily there's IVF, but that was not an easy journey, and that was very scary. And I was anorexic while I was pregnant, which was horrible. And those are the, when people ask me if it was hard to write this book, those are the parts that are hard, is acknowledging all the harm that I did to people I love. Acknowledging the harm I did to myself is one thing, but acknowledging the harm that I did to people who had to, who were helpless in this, like my children or my husband who loved me and had to stand by and watch me kill myself, those are the hard parts to acknowledge.
That is rough, but God bless your family because everyone's healthy.
Yeah.
That is rough. I'm sorry you went through all of that.
No, listen, it served a greater purpose, right? I mean, all these terrible things that I had in my head for so long are now, living a second life in this beautiful book that's going to help people. So it's, I can't say that I would change anything.
In your relationships, of course, I include like your husband, Evan, in this, but even prior to that, anyone you were involved with, did they start to pick up on your habits or question everything? Or were you really good at sort of keeping it under the radar?
I think if you look look hard enough, you could definitely tell. My friends knew, but it's hard to say something to somebody when you're not sure what to say, So people knew and didn't say anything because I never even let it be a broachable topic. But I was so embarrassed by my habits that I remember one night I was out to dinner with a group of girls, and I went to write down what I was eating, and I thought I was doing it very discreetly. And one of the girls at the table, and I don't put this in the book, but one of the girls at the table goes, "You're always writing shit down on a Post-it note. What are you writing? Are you writing about your food? Why are you always writing shit down on a Post-it note?" And I was so embarrassed, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, oh God, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was so embarrassed. God, there was so much shame, and I think every time I felt that, crippling shame around it, I became even more resolved to hide everything and to live with all these secrets, So it made it even harder to be honest about it, which is why I stayed sick for so long. God, there was so much shame. There is so much shame because no one talks about it,
Yeah. And it's almost as though, like, when people do start to pick up on it, the shame forces you to suppress it even more.
Yeah, because it comes out judgmental. That's the way that you hear it when you're so sick. You don't hear people wanting to help you. You just hear, God, they're judging me, and like, God, what do they care what I'm eating? Just worry about what you're eating. Like, you make all these excuses for yourself, but it doesn't sound like help. It sounds like judgment. So it's really hard to help someone who's not ready to help themselves.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I've been through that, and with regards to another matter with someone I was once involved with, not an eating disorder type of situation, but that is true. It's so true.
Yeah, and it must be so frustrating, right? I mean, you have to watch them just destroy themselves, and there's nothing that you can do about it, even if you try and then you give up because, and so Evan, he kept quiet because he tried, and I really chastised him, and he, so he kept quiet. But I think, like, even in your case, with the people that you tried to help would know that you're always there, and knowing that Evan was always there waiting and that he would be, welcome my recovery with open arms if I ever came to him and said I need help. That was always something I knew, and that was really instrumental for me.
That's good. So he sort of like disarmed you when it came to your eating disorder.
Yeah, it was like, you know what, I always knew, and I knew in the moment that I decided to try that I wouldn't have to do it alone. And that was helpful to me.
When you got cast on Real Housewives, were you always very self-aware during filming because you were afraid that this would become a topic in the sense of people would think that you still had an eating disorder at the time? Because you were vocal about having struggled with it your whole life. When you got started...
Yeah, I pretended my first season that I was recovered from it because I wanted to get ahead of it. I was so distorted, I don't even know if that was a good or a bad decision, because I think maybe it made people, aware of it, and they were always looking to see if there was anything left. But I felt like I was so nervous that people would notice that I just wanted to get ahead of it. But I had absolutely no intention of ever talking about it. I was really good at hiding it, or so I thought. And I was resolved in my life itself and also on the job to just live with this forever and to hide it as I had been hiding it for many, many years before. So I had no intention of ever really talking about my struggles, aside from telling everybody that they were something from my past.
So by you acting as though it was all in the past, were you always afraid that one of like your cast members would like sort of accuse you of still struggling with it, call you out on it, etc.? That it would become a topic?
Yeah. I was nervous about it, but I felt like I was always prepared for that moment. And when that moment did come, I was prepared. I write about it in the book. It came my second season on the show.
It was that vacation. Yeah, I remember the episode.
It was in the Hamptons. It was at that restaurant, and they said that I don't eat. And oh my God, I just froze inside. And I said, this is it. And I got so scared. And I just had all my stories ready to go, and I just rambled them off, and I cried, and I talked about how good I am now and how I had recovered, and, don't take that away from me. And I just kept going until they stopped. And then I wasn't questioned anymore.
What made you want to do this book and put it all out there?
The moment that I started, that I decided to recover, I decided that I wanted to ultimately live without this. All of these terrible moments that I kept in my head from the last 20 years, they felt like poison inside me. Really, they did. They felt like they didn't only belong to me. They belonged to everybody who was struggling like I did. And suddenly I felt like these stories couldn't remain secrets anymore. And like I say in the book, your secrets die in the light. And I needed to get rid of all these secrets because they were keeping me sick and they were keeping me stuck. And so once I was about a year into my recovery, no, not even a year. Once I was about like 6 months into my recovery, I said, I'm going to start writing because I was still struggling. I'd say I was really not doing well until a full year into recovery.
Okay.
I was still struggling, but I felt like it was a good place to start because I was still in it enough to know how bad it was, but I was out of it enough to really write from a new standpoint. And by the time I actually started writing the book, I was doing really well. But I knew that I didn't want to hold on to this stuff anymore, and getting it out on paper was the best way to release it from me. It really did feel like poison because all of these things that I went through that you'll read about in the book, they're really once you start to look back on them and think, instead of thinking well, I was just doing what I had to do, you think, God, did I ruin all of these good times by being racked with anxiety over what I would eat? Then, you start to realize how dangerous and toxic and horrible they are, and they make you sad. And so I had to do something else with them. I couldn't just let them, just live inside me.
Of course. I mean, spiritually, it's almost like a cleanse, and it has to be such a cathartic experience.
Yeah, and I didn't know if the book would come out good, and I know it's my book, but objectively, I think it's unbelievable. I really do. I think it's so good, and I don't think there's anyone in the public eye speaking about eating disorders like this. So I really do hope that all these stories, that people find themselves in them, or say, oh my God, someone I love does that, or even if anything that you have, if you struggle with alcohol, you struggle with drugs or anything, it's a story really about just losing your way and spiraling into something toxic and living there, and about how it just destroys you, and then the miracle of finding your way out.
And I think that's why your book stands out, because especially in your field, in reality TV, especially in this digital world that we're in now, everyone is always trying to portray themselves as perfect. They have the perfect life, the perfect this, the perfect that. Whereas your book is very vulnerable and it's very raw. You give detailed accounts of your entire experience. And I think that's what makes the book and what makes your story really relatable. Even if someone didn't struggle with an eating disorder, like you said, they could relate to it if they had any sort of other type of addiction.
Right. And that's what, that's really what I was going for. And there were times when I was like, do I want to tell this piece of it? And then I did, because you really, unless you get really vulnerable, you're not doing justice to how horrible this disease is. So I didn't hold anything back, which makes it, oftentimes hard to read. I had a friend who read it, and she said that her husband made her put it down because she just couldn't stop crying. And he was like, okay, enough for one night. So, but it is a hard book at times to read, but ultimately, you couldn't write it without going there and telling, the full story.
Now, was there ever a point throughout your eating disorder that you were ever suicidal?
No, never. I never was suicidal. I never had bulimia, and I never, I just starved myself. That was it. I was just restrictive. But no, I was never depressed. I was just always anxious about gaining weight.
All right. And that's hard to deal with that level of anxiety for almost 2 decades.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like it wasn't the kind of anxiety where I ever went on an anti-anxiety medication. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a profound fear of food, and that's something that people don't understand. And I also hope to, help people understand with that of how you can be so afraid of food, but it's very real and it's very dangerous. And so that's why I really wanted to take people inside those fears, inside my head, because the voices in my head that made me afraid of certain foods it was just so profound. It really was.
Did your journey almost make you disgusted in a lot of different dishes or food in general? If I
No, food was always like a forbidden pleasure, which is why I thought about food all the time, is because it was so forbidden. So all I did was think about food. I never ate, but I was always thinking about it. I would dream sometimes about food. I
Oh
would
wow.
imagine myself eating food. I would try to drink water and pretend it was, chocolate milk. Because I wouldn't let myself have anything. Everything I ate was fake. I would eat only, if you go to one of those like crazy health food stores where they sell all the stuff with like weird ingredients, like that was all that I would eat. So I just had like all fake foods in my diet, and I didn't know what anything real tasted like. So I would just imagine it. So food was like a forbidden pleasure to me. So what was the question that you asked?
Because you struggled with this for so long,
Yeah.
did food or like a lot of food dishes almost did you basically
Oh,
become
disgust me. No.
okay.
No, I was just I looked at them as like the enemy. Food was just the enemy. It was just like, it was inconceivable to eat anything that was like off my diet. So it didn't, after a while, it didn't even tempt me because I knew the trade-off. I knew what the trade-off was. And in my head, I was so distorted. And, like I always will remind people now that eating disorders are a mental illness, So in my head, food was even like a little bit of something that was forbidden could send me on a spiral back to who I was in high school. And I wanted to avoid that at all costs. So I wouldn't even take one bite. There was nothing that could make me want to taste something. So it wasn't that anything was disgusting to me. Just the whole thought of eating anything was just completely off limits.
Okay. All right. So it was largely in part of there was a forbidden factor to it in a way.
Oh, yes. Yes. And that's why I thought about food all the time. And in recovery, once I stopped, I remember the day that my dietitian said it, like once you stop thinking of food as something that's scarce, you don't think about eating all the time because you're not, it's not scarce anymore. You can have it whenever you want it, and that is absolutely true.
Now, today, this is being recorded September 2023. How far along in your recovery are you?
I would say I'm about 80%. So I am not all the way there. From a health standpoint, I am completely there. So like all of my health functions have come back, except, I'm in my late 40s now, so my menstrual cycle didn't come back, but that's okay. But, all of my, I did go through extensive testing afterwards. And at first there were a lot of things that were broken in my body, but I'm really good now. My heart rate is up, my blood pressure's up. I had liver inflammation that went away. I started hormone replacement when I was in my mid 30s because I just destroyed my endocrinal system. But really everything has come back to life, and my weight is up, and so I'm great from a health standpoint. Mentally, I still have about 20% left to go, and that is largely fears around specific foods that I have not yet eaten. Most notably, people ask me, it's pizza. I still have not had pizza. There are
Really?
so many foods that I, for so long, labeled as the enemy that I'm still like eating new foods and really enjoying them. So I guess the flexibility. I'm not a restrictive eater anymore, but there's certain foods that I just haven't like had the courage to buy and eat yet. And it's irrational because I'm not afraid of gaining weight anymore. It's just certain foods that I just can't bring myself to buy and eat. I don't know. I just don't know why. So that's the work that I have to keep going on. But, I never have anxiety over going to restaurants or going to events or eating more one night or less one night if I'm less hungry. I really try to go with how my body feels. I try to eat foods I'm in the mood for. I try to honor my hunger. And so I'm about 80% there. And I know for sure that I will get there all the way. And I'm so happy to be an advocate. And, I would love to say that I'm 100% there, but that wouldn't be the truth. So I'm going to be honest about every part of this. But I'm definitely on the other side of it now. And I'm so happy to be talking about it because there's so many people who struggle and you wouldn't even know it. A lot of people that are good at keeping secrets like I was.
I'm so glad you're doing much better and all the progress you made. Kudos, because
Thank you.
I commend you. Especially, I feel we're in a world right now where you could probably be triggered a lot because for a while there was this whole body positivity thing, love yourself, etc. That was going on for a good 5 years or so, and recently, over the past year in particular, boom! It's almost like that whole philosophy was a farce because now everyone's on Ozempic and now everyone is trying to be thin all over again. So I give you credit because I could imagine if being in your shoes, this Ozempic thing being shoved down your throat is probably triggering. Would you say, one, that it is triggering? And two, would you say that it is an eating disorder and or enables an eating disorder?
The triggering portion, I think for a lot of people with eating disorders, it is absolutely. For me personally, it is not because I am so far on the other side in terms of how strongly I feel against eating disorders. So there's nothing that could set me backwards right now. I instead of envying anybody on Ozempic, I think it's abhorrent. The drug itself, not the people who are on it. I think that it's an atrocity. However, an atrocity for people who are using it just purely to lose the last 10 pounds, not for people who need it. So for me, it's not a trigger, but in terms of whether it's an eating disorder, I think that for people who are using it just to lose some weight, who don't really need it, I absolutely think that these drugs induce an eating disorder because they're doing essentially what an eating disorder does, which is replacing your hunger with artificial fullness, letting you ignore your hunger, encouraging malnutrition, putting your organs in danger just to lose weight, to change how your body looks, so all the things that Ozempic does to people who don't need it are the things that an eating disorder does. So I don't know how to look at it any other way. And it's really sad to me.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you're not triggered by it. And the fact that you're not triggered by it kind of proves how far along you are in your recovery. So props to that.
Yes, but I will say that it did throw me for a little bit of a loop because one of the things that I always knew prior to Ozempic was that if I recovered, I'd be coming back into a world where a lot of the people closest to me really knew how to enjoy food and not worry about it. And now some of those people are on Ozempic, so I didn't come back into that world. And that was a little unexpected for me. So as I got, bigger, and I'm not saying that I'm a big girl because I still probably people would look at me and think that I'm slim. So, but as I did gain weight and get bigger, a lot of people around me got smaller. So that was a little bit of a plot twist for me, but I'm not triggered by it and I'm not envious of it at all.
That's good. That's good. I'm so glad about that. And I honestly agree with everything you say. I feel like it enables an eating disorder. I feel like if you're doing it just to get thin, which a lot of people are, that's why there was a shortage of it earlier this year. I recall reading about that.
Mm-hmm.
It, it's just people are developing eating disorders because of it. And no one ever discusses the plethora of side effects that come along with taking it when you're not taking it because you need it,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a matter of time, because there are not many long-term studies on this stuff. So, I don't wish for anybody to get sick. So I hope that there are not side effects that end up coming out. But I can't, we've had this before. There's been these magic cures these weight loss drugs in the past, and nothing's really worked out. So we'll see. Remains to be seen.
Now, people send in questions, and I mean, I feel this is a bit of a redundant question, but I'll ask it anyway just because it's worded differently. Is the fact that most of your co-stars are probably on Ozempic has caused you to like have a talk with them, or has this topic come up between you and your co-stars, or is it just like out of sight, out of mind, it's your business?
It only came up one time. So I'm not here to shame anybody for doing what they feel is necessary for themselves. That's not my place. It's not my place to second guess anyone's medical decisions that they make between them and their doctors. But there was a night that I went out to dinner with two co-stars who are on Ozempic, and no one was eating their food, and I was, was on my second glass of wine, and I just I vented, and I said, how uncomfortable it is for me to be the only one eating at this table. And I think both of them got really defensive and uncomfortable with that conversation, so it stopped. But it was, it definitely was eye-opening to me how people do not want to be second-guessed. They don't want to talk about it. And, it reminded me of how I was. I didn't want to talk about it, and I didn't want anyone second-guessing me, so I knew to stop. And, it was something that I realized in that moment that I had to be okay with, because people weren't going to change just because I didn't like it, So I never broached the topic again, because it's really, if I don't like it, that's on me. It's not on anyone else to stop using a drug because I don't like them using it. So I didn't talk about it with them anymore, but I've certainly been vocal in general on how I feel about these diet drugs.
That has to be such an interesting position to be in, because it's sort of like the roles are reversing. It's like now you're on the other side.
I actually feel really fortunate that Ozempic didn't come out sooner, because I think if it had come out while I was still struggling with anorexia, I might have gone on it just so that I could starve without the pain, because the hunger was always the hardest part for me. So if I could starve without the pain, then that would have taken away a whole element of how hard it was to be anorexic. So I also am grateful that it wasn't out when I was a kid, because I think I would have been on it at 13 years old,
Yeah, of course. And especially now, like all these kids are like starting stuff early. So yeah.
I do know some people who have their children on it.
Oh my God, that is so messed up.
Well, I mean, I just hope it's not here to stay, but we'll see.
Now, I know you're currently filming the current season, and I know you probably can't talk much about it, but do topics like this come up, and will like the process of you writing your book and certain topics we discussed today be covered on this upcoming new season?
So far, I don't think Ozempic has come up on the season, but certainly the book is on the season. Yeah, I mean, I was finished writing it by the time we started filming, but the book definitely comes up on the season a lot.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Are you going to have like a launch party for it?
I'm not sure yet, just because it's so, busy between like the book tour and filming the show. But some parts of, I think there might be part of the book tour on the show. We'll see. I mean, a lot of things get filmed that don't actually make it, but I do believe that you'll see part of the book tour on the show. I don't know about a book party, but I mean, that's definitely a possibility also.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I mean, I hope we get to see it, and I hope they include it, because I know those producers are annoying with that type of stuff. And then I just have some like light questions. Like I wanted to cover all of that, but like some people send in some like different questions and stuff. What are some of your favorite hangouts in Bergen County? Obviously, that comes from someone who's local.
Oh,
Alex.
Well, I mean, I'm a Jersey girl, so I love the mall. I love Garden State Plaza. It's my favorite mall. Hangouts. I have my favorite restaurants. I love Verona in Norwood. I love Demora in Norwood also. I love downtown Englewood. It's great. Let's see. Hangouts. Well, I love so I took up boxing because I wanted to stop with my like hardcore just running regimen. And I love that. I go to a gym in Teaneck that's like a real boxing gym called Different Breed. And they're fantastic there. I don't know. I love Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl. I really could stay in Jersey the rest of my life.
Oh, that's awesome. And that boxing gym, that sounds interesting because I used to box. I boxed like 10 years ago. I used to love it. It was like cathartic, but then I injured my hand. But
Oh, no.
yeah, I did. I actually had to
Yeah,
have
it's really
surgery
fun.
on it. But like that's all healed and stuff. So I was thinking about getting back into it. And
Yeah, it's great.
that's so funny. I love downtown Anglewood. I like Sophia because I feel like Sophia is like the only,
Oh, yeah, a great bar. A great bar
I feel like that's the only one that
there.
stays open late during the week because it's hard to find like
Yeah.
a good like restaurant bar that's nice, that stays open late during the week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it there. It's really good.
And could you speak on your relationships between your castmates this season? Because
Everything's always shifting. I think that's the beauty of a reality show. It's about, especially the Real Housewives, it's really about finding ways through your discord. It's a lot about drama, but it's also about like making up and about like adult female relationships. So it's constantly shifting. So whatever I say today might not hold true for tomorrow, but it's a great season so far this season. Lots of constantly shifting dynamics and different friendships, and I think people will really, really like it.
oh, that's fun. That's fun. Yeah, because people said that they're happy to see like you like it seems like you made peace with like Teresa and Jennifer and that they like Jenn Fessler too. So are you able to speak on
Yeah, she's my best friend.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Are you able to speak on your relationships with those three?
I really can't. I'll get in trouble, but I'll just say what I've been saying all along is like, the process of recovery really showed me how to let go of past trauma and learn from it and grow from it and move on from it. And in the process of moving on from it, I've been able to really open myself up to new experiences and new relationships.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm glad. I'm happy about that. And then I got one more casting question. I'll just ask it anyway. What's your relationship like with the new girls? I think they mean Danielle and Rachel, and then like the new ones that are filming. I did see they were testing some people, but
Good. I mean, yeah, I like everybody. I am in a good place with everyone. I'm totally fine. I'm a friend of, so I don't have to get like too deep into drama. So I have no problem with anyone. The new girls are all great.
oh, that's good. That's good. This has been a fun interview. Thanks for being so
Yeah,
open.
great.
Yeah,
No, thank you so much for thinking of me and for taking the time.
yeah. I mean, I was really excited about this book from the get-go because I think I even commented on your post. I'm like, oh, kudos for being like the only housewife that actually wrote their book or some shit. And then once I learned more about the book, I'm like, this kind of hits home because of like growing up in the experience with my mother. And then like a best friend of mine is also a recovered anorexic. So I felt like it's a topic that people don't really discuss out of shame, like you mentioned. So I definitely wanted to give it light. So kudos to that. And it's always nice to speak to a local housewife.
Where are you located?
I live in Maywood. I'm right by the mall, Garden State.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, it was so nice getting to know you.
Yeah, yeah. It's been nice getting to know you, and hopefully we cross paths one day because you seem like so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I would love that. Well, stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Okay, talk to you soon.
You too. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.